Welcome to Radio Cafe 79.7. I'm your host for the evening, Soren Dixon, and tonight we are joined by TUJ's Executive Director, Katsumi Kishida. Please, Katsumi, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Soren. It's good to be here. My name is Katsumi, and I'm the Executive Director of TUJ Kyoto. I'm originally from Japan, born in Osaka. And just a little bit of a life story of where I've been and where I come from. When I was 9 years old, my family moved to the United States because of my dad's job. So my dad, my mom, and I, we moved to New Jersey. So at 9 years old, I got picked out of my neighborhood where I grew up and relocated to a very small town in northern Jersey called Tenafly. And there I spent majority of my formative years. So I did elementary school education, middle school, and then I did, up to freshman in high school. And that's when my life drastically changed again, when my dad decided that it was time for him to go back to Japan. Really, it was his company that says, hey, it's time to come back to Japan. So as you can imagine, I was a freshman in high school. And I was like, what do you mean I'm going back to Japan, right? Because by this time, I was like, hey, New Jersey is my home. I have my friends. I'm in high school. I'm thinking about going to college in the U.S. and living that life of, going to prom and things like that. So obviously, a huge shock. I went kicking and screaming. I was like, I do not want to go back to Japan, which was my home country, but felt so distant from it, right? But I had no choice. So I moved back to Osaka. So I went back to my hometown. But then I went to an international high school in Kyoto. And had a really good experience. And then started kind of liking Japan or getting accustomed back to Japan at that time. But then I was also like, I'm going back to college. I'm going back to the U.S. for the college. And then my parents were like, no, you're not going back to the U.S. just yet. And then expected or asked of me to go to college in Japan. Again, I wasn't a happy student back then with that choice, but that was the choice that I was given. And so I actually went to university in Kyoto. So I did high school years and college in Kyoto. And then after that, I was like, hey, I've done what you told me. I went to college in Japan. It's time for me to move back to the U.S. So I took myself back to the U.S. for graduate school. Didn't come back. Had a career in international education for over 20 years in the U.S. And then last summer, in July, I relocated back to Kyoto to take this role as an executive director of TUJ Kyoto.
Wow, that's quite an adventure. Now, what exactly does an executive director do? It sounds like a fancy title with all these responsibilities. Walk me through your day. What does it look like?
Yeah, so what do I do? It's a great question. I do everything. I oversee operations of the campus day to day, right? It's, functional wise, I respond to a lot of emails, I think with a lot of things too, but I talk to a lot of students. I talk to faculty members. So really my role is to make sure that the campus is operational. Students are in their classes, they're satisfied, they like their experience. Making sure that we have activities for students to participate in as well. And really, that's a good question. What do I do? Everything. I guess I want to say everything. But I also work with a great staff, right, that make TUJ Kyoto possible. From student affairs to administrative staff to all of the faculty and wonderful teachers that teach our students. And so, in a nutshell, my job is far, what's the word I say? Just lots of different webs. It reaches far, different hats. I wear different hats all the time. But my focus is really, at the end of the day, making sure that students in our community are happy, engaged, successful, academically as well as socially, and making sure that all of the pieces fit together, are working well together, to make sure that that happens.
Yeah, kind of sounds like the mom of CUJ. Now, obviously, if you're, taking care of these students, right, a lot of them might be having the same experience that you had of, I want to go study abroad, like I want to go see something. And you have this continual drive to go see the world and and have this drive for international education. But really, what's underlying that? Why is this seeking of this international education? What's the drive there?
Right. So for me, right, international education is at my core, right? Just like I talked a little bit about what my life story is, it's really weaving through different cultures, learning who I am within those cultures, and really developing an identity. So for me, those two cultures would be U.S. and Japan, right? So when I look at myself and where I've been, the experiences I've had, and what makes me who I am, it really highlights the importance of education, right? And how that has formed me into who I am today. So, and I'm not just talking about like being able to communicate with different people from different backgrounds and cultures, but it's really about the core of my identity that I carry with me. So, it's international education is, this sounds really cliche, but international education, I feel, is at the core of who I am. And I think I'm really fortunate that my life has taken me to a place where I get to turn that core of who I am into a career, right? So I'm always reflecting back to my own personal experience, like, my first time in a U.S. school system when I was 9 years old. Like, I still remember, like, the first day that I walked in an American school, when I think that was, like, in third grade, and the shock that I had, because I was used to a Japanese elementary school. And then, day one, I see all of these American kids just, like, walking around the hallway, freely talking to their teachers and their friends, and really like doing their own thing, right? Whereas I was coming from a Japanese elementary school where like when you walk down the hallway, you like walk in a row, or you're like walking in groups, or there's like a reason why you're in the hallway, right? You're not just kind of hanging out with your friends in the hallway. So I still remember that huge culture shock moment that I had. But that's what makes me who I am, right? Going through those experiences really changes who you are, but also allowed me to learn who I was as a person, right? And spending my formative years in the U.S. and coming back to Japan for high school and college also taught me something different, right? So I came back, we talk a lot about in international education, like reverse culture shock, right? And I remember experiencing reverse culture shock, when I was returning back. I was thinking, of course I was mad because I was a freshman in high school. Why am I going back to Japan now? Really angry at my parents for quite some time, but that's another story. And, I was thinking like, hey, well, I guess if I had to look at it in a positive light, I get to go home, right? This is Japan. I'm from Japan. I finally get to be with my people, right? But because I was brought up in a different environment culturally and also with schooling, what I found was that I didn't quite fit in to like Japanese society, Japanese culture, like I thought I would, right? So my identity as a person had already shifted from, let's say, somebody that's grew up in Japan only. So, I started really, when I went to college, I majored in international relations, but really my focus was how does different educational system impact like identity building. and how do you as a person carry those different educational systems in your life and how that impacts like kind of your trajectory of what you're going to do in the future. So I guess all that to say, international education is a core of who I am. And I'm passionate about, right, giving opportunities for students to find themselves, discover their maybe perhaps new self or shifted self, right, through experiences that you can only have in international education, right? Taking yourself out of the comfort zone and really looking inward, but also learning about the outside, the different cultures. So it kind of all like holistically integrate with each other to who I am. So I'm just really excited and happy that I get to do the work that I do.
Yeah, no, and I think that you kind of touched on maybe it's almost like learning new ways to learn, right? That you are put in a new situation, you have to learn how to learn in that situation.
Right.
But, international education, a lot of people really ascribe it to being a core part of their lives. But it's a difficult process, right? Especially now. What you think are some of the challenges that face international education? And how does TUJ Kyoto kind of go about facing them?
Right. Yeah, definitely. I mean, great question. I think, in this globalized, interconnected, world that we live in, international education is a core driving force of like building bridges across cultures and different people. And there's definitely challenges. I mean, I think there's a lot of uncertainty, potentially unknowns in the world of everything that's happening. Whether that's change in politics or change in economic standings of a particular country, right? There's always something changes, new challenges happening. And I think international education is where it begins, right? When our youth and our future generations can learn in this environment of understanding differences, but then seeing the commonality in the differences, right? So I always talk to a lot of my students about how, yes, people that come from different cultures, different worlds, of course there are differences, and those are what gets highlighted first, right? The differences. What's different between you and I? But there's actually a lot of commonality that you can find in the differences as well. So really focusing and seeing what are those commonalities and then talking them through. So I think that really prepares our youth to go out there in the world to then maybe challenge some of these uncertainties or perhaps get into a field where they feel where they are passionate about, and whether it's making those bridges or finding their own community in a different country, whatever it may be. I think international education gives the tools to equip our youth to really find themselves, find their journey, find their footing, in this world where, a lot of things are kind of in flux all the time, right? Like talking about adaptability, right? Being able to have some flexibility, right? Molding yourself to, a little bit of a chameleon, right? Molding yourself to the changing times. And, how does TUJ support that? I mean, I think the amazing thing about Temple University and Temple University Japan is that we always put students first, right? We care about our students. We want our students to have the most valuable academic and social experience journey while they're here with us, whether that's a study abroad students coming for one semester or a degree-seeking student that's here for a longer time with us. And I think because we put our students in the center, I think TUJ is special because once we put students and their needs in the center, this somehow organically produces students that are well equipped, right? Because we're always listening to students and what they're looking for. And students have this amazing power, youth have this amazing power to really create paths for themselves and then start identifying what it is that they need or want or a path that they want to go on. So I think TUJ is special and we're able to do that because we put our students first. So as an organization, we're flexible, we're adaptable, and then hearing what our youth need or feel like is the need, we're able to then in return equip our students with some of these tools to go out into the world.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned putting the students first. I wonder if you have any personal anecdotes, right, of certain things that stick out to you of really when you connected with students at TUJ Kyoto.
Wow. I mean, first of all, this was our first semester, right, at TUJ Kyoto, and it's been an amazing ride. We just finished the semester today, actually. So what great timing for recording this podcast. But, our students are so energetic, right, and passionate and really care. Is there a memorable, there's so many memorable moments, but I would have to say, I think the international night that our students organized this semester was something really special because it brought the local community together into our space. It was student organized, student driven. It was their idea of how to bring people together, right? And what you guys did, and Soren, you were part of it, was to do dancing, to teach everybody dancing and then to dance together. And seeing that moment, I was like, wow, this is what it's about, right? Meaning, like, students, potentially there were some community members that didn't speak English and our students didn't speak Japanese, so there might have been a barrier or a challenge in communication. But dance doesn't require you to have those language skills. But then there's a shared feeling of doing something together. And there's this innate connection that people create, through physical activity like dancing.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, and when I saw all the students connecting with other local students as well as other students at TUJ, it just really warmed up my heart. So I think that might be my favorite moment of the semester. And I got to jump in and learn how to line dance, and that was so fun too. And I'll definitely carry that with me.
Yeah, no, and I think definitely, the community is something that jumps out to the students. But I'm really curious, right? You have this culture at TUJ of putting students first. But what's something that's specific or different about TUJ Kyoto, a satellite campus attached to TUJ, that really, you like or it appeals to you?
Yeah, well, I think Kyoto is a special place, right? Having spent my high school and college years in Kyoto, I fell in love with Kyoto a long time ago. Kyoto's cultural depth is something that is special and you can't experience anywhere else in Japan. And I think what makes TUJ Kyoto special is that we get to bring our TUJ culture, our students, to this special place called Kyoto and merge them together, right? So whether that's introducing or connecting our students to the local community members, that families that's, generations been in Kyoto, carry this Kyoto culture, right? Learning that happens through that. Being in partners with Seibo Jogakuen, which is a school that's been in Kyoto for over 100 years, educating youth for so many years, has this wonderful tradition that they carry. And we get to be neighbors, right, with Seibojo Gakuin and create something new out of this partnership. I think that's what makes TUJ Kyoto special, in that we get to form something new in a place that has been around for thousands of years with its own culture, with its own tradition. But then TUJ Kyoto gets to bring something new to that equation. So really looking forward to seeing how that develops and how that takes form. And for our students that study at TUJ Kyoto, not only do they get to experience this imperial culture of Kyoto, they get to also bring their own culture in a little bit, right? And influence Kyoto, even if it's in a small way. And I think that's a great, exciting opportunity for TUJ Kyoto.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, TUJ Kyoto is kind of making bounds by opening up in Kansai, really leading international education as a visionary trailblazer. What's been the most surprising or hardest part about that journey?
Surprising and hardest part of the journey. Wow. Let's see. That's a good question. Surprising, I think, is the openness of the community, right? Not that I was expecting anything less, but the community members that have welcomed us really with open arms, excited that we're coming, right? When I first moved back to Japan to take this opportunity, this was last year in July, I wasn't sure how the community will take us in, or the impression they have. And it's been great. I remember Dean Wilson and I walked around the neighborhood handing out little cookie boxes to introduce ourselves. And every neighbor that we visited was so excited about us and so welcoming. So that's been a pleasant surprise. And that helps us, right? And then that's a good thing for our students, because as they are in the communities, right, spending their semester living with community members, so that welcoming feeling that the community is giving us, definitely the students feel that too. So that's been wonderful. Challenging? Challenging, I think, is trying to keep up with the pace that we're growing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's a lot of buzz, which is awesome. And I think we are only going to grow at TUJ Kyoto. And so keeping up with that pace of growth, making sure that although we will be expanding, or we're in the trajectory to expand, I think for me what's important is to make sure that it's, at the end of the day, it's about our students, that the students are still getting that excellent academic program, the social engagement activities that are, deep, enlightening, connecting with the community members. So, as we start our growth, right, we successfully opened up the campus. Now we're going into the phase of growth. For me, I think it's always good to remind myself that, look, at the end, it's about the students. So,
yeah, of course.
Right, even with the expansion, we're always putting our students first.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned this exciting word, growth, which is almost like reversing a trend in Japan, right? But what does that growth look like? What does the next few years for TUJ Kyoto look like?
Lots more students. I think growth for us means, not only in numbers, of course, so growing our student numbers, but also I think growing our impact and deepening our relationship with our community is going to be part of that growth. as some of you may know, we've, signed cooperative agreements with Kyoto Prefecture and Kyoto City. So that's just starting, right? Where we're going to be taking on different projects that we're going to work very closely with the prefectural government and the city government. So what does that look like in 3 years, 5 years, right? That's very exciting to see where that takes us. So growth, what does it look like? Growth in student numbers, but also our deepening connections, relationships with the community, right? Hoping that, when somebody hears TUJ Kyoto, they know about us. It's a positive feedback. Oh, yes, TUJ Kyoto. And, making sure that we continue that.
Yeah. Now, you've talked about this growth, right? And it's not even on a, student numbers, maybe on an institution level, but for you personally, what do you think has changed coming back to Japan, right? As a little girl, you never wanted to come back to Japan, but now you're choosing to, right? So is there a certain amount of personal growth, or maybe you also miss stuff from America? What does that looking like?
Yeah, great question. I love that question. So, it's been a journey. Leaving the U.S. after 20-something years of having a career has been a transition, but definitely a good transition for sure. There's a saying that, we all go home at the end of the day, right? When we get older, we just want to go home. I never understood that as a young person. I was thinking, why will I want to go home? Like, my life in the U.S. is great, and I love my career. And then there was a turning point where I was like, oh, I might want the comforts of home. So being able to make this transition has been great. So being closer to my family members in Japan, being able to spend time with them is something that I can't replace, I think. And what does it look like for me in the next couple of years? Growing to UJ Kyoto, being part of the community, coming back to Kyoto is really special. So...
Yeah. Now, are there certain things about Kyoto, maybe the food or certain places that you found you really like about Kyoto?
Oh, I love how Kyoto is such a manageable size. You can get from one end to another on a bike relatively quickly. And then Kyoto has everything to offer. I feel like from the quiet corner where you find this amazing little shrine where it's so quiet and local people are just going on about their daily lives to, the middle of Kyoto Station where it's like the hustle and bustle and everybody from around the world coming for a visit. And I think that fusion or that intersection of global people coming in and out, and then you turn a corner and there's this quiet nook, right? I love that about Kyoto and these unexpected things that you find along the way as well.
Yeah, that's great. Well, rapid fire questions for you before we end up here. Favorite ice cream flavor?
Chocolate.
Favorite food in Kyoto?
Oh my goodness, it must be the tofu.
Favorite Kansai word?
Donmai.
Donmai. Well, with that, thank you very much, Katsumi. We look forward to having our next guest on the show, William Swinton. Tune in next time to hear about TUJ's leadership in Kyoto and Okini.
Okini.